All right, we're gonna give it one more minute.
Sounds good, man. What you drinking on?
This is a pecan brown ale. It's
That sounds.
from Steel Hands Brewery in Greensboro. So,
Hmm.
yeah, man, that's a really good one. I like that one. So,
I've heard of that.
yeah, Steel Hands is a good one. All right, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna get rocking and rolling here.
Right. Do it.
Well, hey guys, welcome to another special edition of DCO Live. So, tonight we are chatting with John with Fishful Thinking Fishing. John, I really appreciate you jumping on here, man.
Oh yeah, absolutely, man. What's up, DCO Nation? What's up, everybody? Glad to be on here. And so let's talk a little fishing. Let's have a little fun.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Russell, I see that you're on. John can't see the chat box. So when you guys put in a question, just go ahead and pop it in there and I'll read it off. And I'm probably going to punt most of the questions over to John so that he can jump right in and give his opinion. You guys have heard me talk enough over the last few weeks. So why don't you tell me, John, when's the last time you've been out on the water?
So the last time I actually went out was a little over a month ago. I haven't been out, some health reasons, stuff like that, just getting everything ready to go and everything. But yeah, getting back out Saturday, going out to the jetties, seeing what we can get on, taking a bunch of bait, and just hopefully going to try to go out there and get a little past the jetties, maybe a couple miles out, find some cobia, find
Oh,
anything.
really?
Yeah, so if that doesn't work out, game plan is just come back to the jetties, whether we're using live bait lures or whatever, throw around the rocks, see what we can catch.
Oh,
So it's
fantastic.
always.
Yeah, yeah, fantastic, fantastic. So, Russell, I see you're on. Tim, Heath, nice to see you guys. Again, throw the questions out. Let's bombard John here. I want to put him, through the ringer like you guys put it through me. So, but John does everything from, oh man, surf fishing to kayak fishing. He's got a boat. I mean, you do a little bit of everything, and you go after everything. I mean, from flounder, redfish, sheep's head. Like you said, you were going to target some cobia. So now that's fantastic. So what do you prefer? Do you like the skinny water in a kayak, or getting out in your boat, or?
Man, I don't know if I actually have a favorite. I think honestly, I just love to fish, and I love to just catch fish, and I want to catch as many fish as possible. And whether that be from the beach, and I like just switching it up a lot because it just keeps everything fresh,
Hmm.
and it's fun to do different things, and just honestly, it's all about learning for me, and I just want to learn as much as possible. Kind of think like a fish, and so I kind of go by that motto. And so far, so good. I feel like I'm still learning, but I've learned a lot at the same time. Um, but if I have to choose now, if I have to choose what I want to do, I want to get on my boat and I want to be back in a marsh, back in a creek somewhere away from everybody.
Okay, okay. And then what would you be targeting back up in those creeks?
Oh, it would be the redfish, the flounder, the trout,
Yeah.
your typical backwater inshore fish, throw in whatever, if I like to fish live bait. I'm a big live bait guy. I like to always have at least like minnows or shrimp or something on the boat, but I will have rods tied up with any kind of artificials, and we'll throw both just to see what they want.
Right.
And so, whether it be targeting creek mouths or, those marshes and those little feeder creeks, flounder love, more, as much as anybody about flounder, they love to sit in those feeder creeks, especially at an outgoing tide.
Right, right. So, one of the questions that I get quite a bit is when you're using your live bait, what kind of a rig are you using? How do you have it all rigged up? You using a popping cork, or are you on the bottom, or?
Well, it's actually it sounds very complex, but it's very simple. So when I use live bait, I will use the same jig head as I tie on for any artificial. So like if I'm in skinnier water and I want to throw an 1/8 ounce jig head, I will just put the shrimp or the minnow on that jig head and almost kind of, I don't let it sit. So like I'm not like a just soak it and leave it. I actually like to kind of work my live bait back to the boat as I would an artificial. And so it kind of gives that reaction strike, or it kind of gives just that straight hunger strike to where, you got both the advantages on the fish. And so, I like to use live bait just on a jig head.
Yeah. Okay. So are you using on that jig head? Are you using a mud minnow and shrimp with the same setup? Using kind of
So
whatever.
yeah, let's just say if I am back there and I got mud minnows and shrimp on board, I'll take a mud minnow and I like to hook it basically like up through the bottom of the lip, and then throw it out and just kind of work it back. And I'm just like a pop it and let it fall, pop it, let it fall, and that's about the only way I retrieve everything.
Okay.
And a lot of people like real retrievals and all that, which we do in a little bit, but a lot of doing what you know really will help you catch more fish instead of trying like a bunch of different things, get good at one thing. And so what I'll do is take the minnow and either hook it up to the bottom of the lip, throw it out and work it back. Or if I have shrimp, I'll actually peel the tail off the shrimp and put the jig head through it. And I would almost like make it and put the jig head through the belly and almost make it look like it's an artificial, but it's a live shrimp. So the head of your shrimp is actually sitting kind of like this off of your hook down here.
Oh, okay. Okay. Oh, that's an awesome tip, man. I love that. I love that. Yeah,
Structure, you can rig it weedless,
yeah.
and then if you just run out of live bait, you just throw your artificial and literally work it the same exact way.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's awesome. I mean, I don't fish a lot of live bait. I'm just not a live bait guy. I mean, I'm all artificial right now. And but when I do live bait, I rig it the exact same way you do. I don't get fancy. I don't do Carolina rigs or anything like that. I'll just use a trout eye, and like if I'm targeting flounder, I'll just pull it across the bottom instead of hopping it because that's where the flounder are sitting. So I'll just, almost kind of drag it, pause it, drag it, pause it, drag it that way. So yeah, and
an awesome way to do it, like I said, because I think that can give you, a lot of different kind of strikes.
yeah, yeah.
That reaction strike, or that just straight up hunger, or just that mean strike, just I want to kill that thing because I don't like it,
Right, right. So Blacksmith Chris just jumped on. He said, "Great tip, thanks." So yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome.
If you got one thing from me today, I feel like I would be very accomplished.
Yeah. So again, you guys that have just jumped on, cast out your questions. John is proficient in surf fishing, kayak, everything. He's fished from the bank. I've seen him fish off of a roadside little bridge catching redfish. So I mean, and I'm kind of a one-man band. I sit in a kayak and I love to just kind of bob around like a cork. So John's the man.
That's fun to do, is jumping around. And I'll tell you what, if I could catch as many flounder as you, I feel like I'd be doing something. But man, I see all your flounder posts, and I'm like, this guy just knows how to catch them.
No, I tell you what, man, it's Merle's Inlet. That's that. You want to get Merle's is fantastic for flounder. It's just a flounder factory.
That
I don't know what it is about that fishery, but it just gets like restocked like every couple of tides. It's really odd. Yeah.
That's all.
So yeah, no, it's not the fisherman, man. It's not the fisherman.
Give yourself some credit, man. Come on now.
Yeah, exactly. So, have you been out since Tropical Storm Debbie has pushed through?
Yes, yeah. We had to leave my 1-year-old boy, so we live on Edisto Island, and,
Okay.
in one way off of Edisto. And if it were to have been 2 years ago when, I don't have, a kid and stuff like that, then I wouldn't be so worried about it. But now that I got my little boy, and we just stuck or flooded on the island or anything like that, so just in case something happened. So we had to leave, and And we came back a week later, and everything was fine at our place. I know a couple tornadoes hit Edisto,
Oh,
but our place is about 8 minutes inland, and so we just have one tree down in the yard over there. But besides that, we escaped with not much damage at all, just a little bit of
good.
flooding. But yeah, it
Good.
hit hard.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, we're actually just kind of starting to see some of the effects now with some of the flooding starting to come in from the upstate. They got pounded pretty good, and now we're starting to see those effects.
Same thing here. Like our highways have been flooded, especially like up towards like Somerville and all that. Like it's been Ridgeville, like all that upper Edisto area is just flooded with all that water.
Yeah.
So, but the water here on Edisto, the beach today looked honestly really good. It was very calm. Tide was not running hard, and if I wouldn't have had to work today, I would have been on.
Yeah, man. So yeah, for some reason work gets in the way. I don't know what that is.
Don't like you not coming in for some reason.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so I got a quick question. Heath asked, John, is mud minnows your bait of choice when you are red fishing?
Ooh, good question. Good question, Keith. Is it Heath or Keith?
Heath.
Heath. All right. Good question, Heath. So bait of choice, mud minnows are just very easy to get. Whether that be from the store or with the cast net. Now, I'm a guy, I like to catch just as many fish as possible. And so, like, if I can get my hands on some shrimp and just throw my cast net and get, a lot of good quality shrimp, I think shrimp is always the go to, especially when everything eats it. But if I'm going to target redfish specifically, my go to would be small finger mullet. I would get small finger mullet, no bigger than, what would be your middle finger here or your pointer finger, and I would find a ton of those and try to catch them in the cast net, get as many as I can. And that's redfish, trout, flounder, that's just candy for those fish. And they love finger, and that's the number one go. So if I were to choose, it would be finger mullet.
Is there a specific area that you're targeting in these creeks, grass lines, creek mouths, whatever?
So I have a lot of success in creek mouths at an outgoing tide. So I will try to find, so I'll fish the day, I'll try to fish the tide. And so, like, if I want to fish like an outgoing tide that day, and that's what I want to do, and I want to target creek mouths, and I want to fish, maybe like a generalized area, I'll target creek mouths. And I'm a big fan of throwing popping corks over top of oyster beds. And so, going out at low tide and scouting and finding all these oyster beds, marking them, and then coming back at a higher tide when it's over, and actually floating finger mullet or whatever bait over the oyster beds, because those fish like to sit at the bottom of those oyster beds, and it just provides protection and all that stuff for them. And actually, the oysters provide warmer water in the wintertime, and so they like to sit at the bottom of those. So bait coming over top, all inshore fish being ambush predators anyway, they're going to ambush it and hit it. So I really like oyster beds. If I can find oyster beds, that's where I'm going to go.
Are you floating that bait as close as you can to the oyster or halfway up the column or?
So I'm kind of floating. So let's just say, let's give a hypothetical thing here and say that we got an oyster mound and about 2 foot of it is out of the water and about 4 foot of it is in. I'm going to try to hit it. And so and I say I have an 18-inch leader, on that popping cork, from popping cork to, and I will throw it, and I won't try to throw it right, obviously, like on top of it, but I want that bait to be able to make it look like it's using the for protection. And that's naturally what small bait fish are going to do, is try to find their protection. And so, like, the closer you can get it to the oyster bed without getting hung up, the better. But you don't want to fish like right on top of it, because that minnow will probably swim down in the oyster bed or somehow get you hung up in there, and then you're just retying and retying and retying.
Right, right. Yeah. That's pretty much what I've seen too. Even when I'm working any type of an artificial, there's usually on one side or the other of that oyster bed, it's usually a pretty deep hole where it kind of washes out, and that's where I'm kind of targeting too. So, yeah, that's awesome tip. Awesome. Do again, another common question that I get all the time: what is your favorite tide? If you can go out and have the same tide all the time when you go out, what kind of tide would it be? Ingoing, outgoing? What do you like?
So I think that is the most asked question,
Yeah.
and I have I have a few responses that I want to. I have a few responses. If I have to choose one now, I can go on about this for hours and hours.
Okay,
If I
yeah, well, you've got the next 30 seconds. Go.
30 seconds, if I have to choose one, I'm going 2 hours before low tide, 2 hours after the tide starts coming in. So I'm going to fish that low tide. It really pushes fish and has to centralize them in one area. When you get those big flood tides or even high tides, and just as much as I do here on the East Coast, we get big tides. And when those, fish can get up in the grass, it just gives them more places to go. And so when I can shoot fish in a barrel, and I can catch 20 reds out of one spot, that's what I like to do. And so like getting back up in a creek, and like I said, it always kind of resorts back to like oyster mounds, deep water, oyster mounds, deep water. When you find those two together, there's probably fish there. And and so at a low tide, when they're centralized, kind of jammed together, is the best time. But I also think fishing an incoming tide or a high tide is very fun, you know, and you just have to, it's not even have the knowledge. I'm trying to think of the right word. So you just have to know where the fish are going to be. Again, I always refer to back just to think like a fish, like what's a fish going to do right now? If I were a fish, where would I go? And so when you can find those high tide spots, especially far back up in creeks, because that's where redfish are going to go, they're just chasing bait, And so you find bait, and so you just follow the tide in, and you basically follow the fish. I don't know. Any tide is fun. I will fish any tide. It does not matter to me. But if I'm surf fishing and I'm trying to catch like big sharks or big redfish or anything, I'm going to fish the incoming tide because it gives those fish just that much water through the day or through that tide cycle, I reckon, to come in closer rather than when they feel the tide going out, then they're going to just get out of there.
Okay.
And so
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
targeting, whiting or pompano or anything like that, I love to fish the outgoing. And I will sit there until it gets low and then 2 hours back in.
Okay.
But the outgoing tide, for me at least, seems like the time on the beach to catch like most of like a ton of whiting and your pompano and all of those like smaller kind of fish that you can catch off the beach.
Right, right. Yeah, I'm pretty much in the same boat with you. I love that, last couple hours of the outgoing, then the bottom, and then, the first couple hours of the incoming tide. I think that's the best fishing. You can get into some of those creeks that usually drain out completely where the reds are still kind of pushed back up in there. And you talk about shooting fish in a barrel. I mean, they're just stacked up in there and there's no place to go. So yeah, that's awesome. That's the best kind of fishing, really
It
is.
is. Makes it so fun. And like, I don't know, some people don't like this and some people hate on it, but I could sit there and catch those same fish for
Yeah,
hours.
yeah, yeah.
Well, I don't want to leave fish to go find fish.
Yeah, no, no, yeah, especially when you can find them like that. So, Russell just asked a question. He said, when there's an oyster bed, is it like a calm area in the water, or is that always near a creek mouth?
Can you repeat that?
Yeah. So, when there's an oyster bed, is it a calm area in the water around the oyster bed?
So, so what I think he's asking is are the fish going to be in the calm area, or am I fishing the calm area of around the oyster bed, or am I letting my bobber or cork float by it? And so I'm trying to like, I don't, I'm sorry, I just quite don't understand that question.
Yeah. So, hey, Russell, if you can, just reword the question and pop it right back into the chat again.
Yeah, but I can answer it in what I think he was, and then whenever he pops
Yeah.
it back in, we'll answer it the right way. But I
Go ahead.
honestly,
Go ahead.
redfish, do not like to swim against the current all the time. They want to find still water. Rather, the trout do not Always just a little bit deeper than what the redfish are going to be, especially on like oyster mounds or any kind of deep holes or anything like that. And so I like to float my cork past the oyster bed and just kind of cover as much water as possible rather than letting it sit in the calm area, because the fish are sitting in the calm area to ambush the baits that are swimming by. And so, like I said, just make it look as natural as possible, get it to swim by them, and they almost just can't resist it.
Yeah, he just said you're. I think you just asked it or answered that question correctly. Yeah, I think that's what he was.
Awesome, Russell. I'm glad I
Yep,
answered it.
yep. No, you got it. You got it.
Yep.
So, um, so let's talk about high tide fishing. The last couple of weeks, I have really been getting into pushing up into the flooded grass and trying to target some bigger reds that are up there feeding. And it is such a hunt and peck way of fishing. You've got to have your head on a swivel. You got to have your ears listening for blowups. And do you do that kind of fishing at all? Do you push up into those flats and try to almost sight fish? And
I don't have the boat to do it, and those guys that do that are just awesome,
yeah, yeah,
Like, they know exactly what to look for. Now it looks insanely fun, and I would love to do it. And I've walked marshes and stuff before, and like tried to do some sight fishing in grass. I've never caught anything that way. When I fish at high tide, I just like to go find deep grass lines. And so that's where I like to fish in a high tide, is just deep grass lines, or like I said, as far back up a creek as possible to the back of it.
yeah, yeah.
That's my high tide spots. I don't do a lot of that, flood tide. It looks so fun though. It looks so
Yeah.
fun. I would like to get on with somebody who just knows exactly what to do.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I'm just starting to dip my toes into it a little bit, but I got a 26-inch red that way a couple of weeks ago where I heard him, and so I kind of came around a little corner and
Mm-hmm.
I saw him working, so I stood up in the kayak and I thought I could kind of see him in the water, but he was like just far enough away. Made a cast, nothing happened. Made another cast, and man, he came out and just slurped it up. And I was like, oh man, it's on. This is the best.
Didn't
So
you landed him and everything?
yeah, yep, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was insane. And
I,
what's that?
I love to watch the guys who get on those flats. I love to watch them do it.
Yeah, yeah. Like I said, I don't do it very often, and I am not good at it at all. But that's one of the skills that I definitely want to try to, get a lot better at. The guys, I get this question. It's like, man, I never see tailing redfish. It's like I think I've seen like two or three. It's just, it's not what they do. It's almost kind of an oddity when you see the tails up and they're rooting around in there. You just don't see them do that kind of stuff.
You don't see them a lot doing that. You'll see them on the grass flats and all that. You'll see it a good bit, and those guys really have a good eye for that. But if you fish, I think the way me and you do, for the most part, we like fishing in the creeks and some like deep bends and all that. And so for me, I've seen them back in creeks. I've seen them just like along the grass line, like putting their tails up and splashing and everything like that. But I mean, like you said, like rarely, I don't see that every time I go out.
Right.
Every 5 times I go out, I don't see that.
Yeah. Yeah.
If I see it, I get excited because it's like, oh look, there's a redfish tailing right there.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah. I think I saw one redfish tailing, and this may have been a year and a half ago. And I pitched a little shrimp at him, and I think I hit him right in the head, man, because he changed zip codes on me like in about a second and a half, and I was like, well, he's gone. But
those spooky fish,
yeah,
they get out of it.
yeah, yeah, it was almost like buck fever, man. I saw that tail, and I was like, oh, you gotta be kidding! There he is, and I just couldn't flip. Yeah, exactly, hit him right in the head with it. But no, that's good stuff. That's good stuff. So
A bit more in front of him.
yeah, 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 a lot more in front of me. um, One of your last couple of videos, I saw that you got on a sheep's head bite, and I know I get a lot of question about sheep's head. Do you want to go over how you fish for them and rigging and?
So I can't say I'm a sheep's head like guru. I'm pretty good at catching them. I got a buddy who's just insanely good at catching them. But so with me, it's the same thing. It's so the video you're referring to. I think we were catching them out at the Jets, and what we were using was just that same setup with a jig head, a small jig head and a fiddler crab. And you can. So there's a lot of good setups. Like I love bottom sweeper jigs. I think bottom sweeper jigs are awesome. They work great, but when you're basically vertical fishing, if I'm in my kayak and I'm vertical fishing, maybe like a dock or something like that, that's always not the best way to go because it just has to be on the bottom, and so you can't change the depth of it. And a lot of guys I see use corks, and we'll have like a slip cork. And so a slip cork works good because you can change the depth. And sheep's head aren't always on the bottom.
Yeah.
They're suspended. You'll see them like turn sideways and be eating off pylons, off docks. And so they're always at kind of different levels in the water. And so as soon as you can kind of like nail down the area and the depth and everything, you can really get on a good sheep's head bite. But they're tough to catch. They have that little, that finicky bite, and it's like a peck, 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 and then it's gone, and then you just don't have a crowd.
Right. Yeah. I don't do a lot of sheep's head fishing. It's just not something that I do. I know there's a lot of guys in Merle's Inlet that hit a lot of the docks, a lot of the older docks that are just loaded with barnacles and stuff like that. And those guys have always told me the older the dock and the more run down, and that's where your sheep's head are going to be hanging out.
And so another trick to find sheep's head, if you like, because I'm a big scouter. I like to scout areas maybe like as I'm fishing. And a good thing to think of when you're out there fishing and it's like a low tide, look for those old docks, like you said, and then look for what looks like little white chunks. And that's all the sheep's head bites that they're eating those barnacles. And you can see where the barnacles have been bitten. So if you see an old dock with what looks like a lot of white dots on it, when the tide comes back up, those sheep's head are going to be at that dock.
Oh, no kidding. Okay.
So that's one way. Sheep's head bite for me is always better on an incoming tide because they can rise up and feed on more barnacles, and they're just kind of more aggressive.
Okay. All right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess I never really thought about that. That makes perfect sense. Perfect sense. So, man, I tell you what, guys, if you're not taking notes, that's on you. If you guys want to get on a sheep's head bite, that's phenomenal. That's phenomenal.
Sheep's head's a fun fish. They fight hard.
Yeah.
And they're real good to eat.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. See, I've never had sheep's head, but that's what I've always heard.
Got a pack right here in this freezer right here.
Oh man, see, you shouldn't have even said that. That's not even right.
We love get our fish around here. We catch, we fish to eat.
Yeah.
That's my wife was raised, and that's the way I still like to do things. And so we fish a lot. A lot of my videos are catching cooks.
Yeah, absolutely. Does has she been going out fishing with you? I know in a lot of your videos she's out there and she's out fishing you, man. She's a hell of a fisherman.
Every time. And it's amazing because like she won't even be trying, and I'm over there like trying to apply all this knowledge and these retrievals and this lure, and she's just got just minnow and a jig head and just kind of tossing around and wearing them out, But she hasn't been able to get on the water as much just because of our baby.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it's just me and her down here, and so like if I'm on the water, she has to be there, but. He's getting to the point now to where he can finally like get out on the boat and everything like that. Yeah. And he's been on the boat a couple times, but we really got to like hold him and everything. But he's getting to the point now to where he can, sit on his own and hang out with us. So hopefully in the upcoming future, you'll see a lot more of my wife fishing with me again.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. So, how long have you been in the Edisto kind of Charleston area?
So I moved to Charleston in 2014, and coming from like a striper fishing background from the upstate, Lake Hartwell is actually where I learned to fish, and caught a bunch of stripers out of there, big largemouth, kind of my whole life. Well, then, but vacationing down to the beach every year, and all I wanted to do was fish. And that's all I wanted to do was learn how to catch saltwater fish. I don't know what it was. I don't know why my fascination was so big over that, but
Mm.
that is what I ever wanted to do. And so moving down here in 2014, a big goal of mine was to learn how to saltwater fish, and so I had a lot of good mentors help me out. A lot of people showed me, and it was pretty easy for me to catch on. It wasn't too hard. The transition from freshwater to saltwater is not as big of a jump as you think. It can be very intimidating,
Mm.
but it's big of a jump. Fish are just going to be fish. At the end of the day, whether it be in freshwater or saltwater. So I moved there in 2014 and moved to Edisto, and just in February of this year, and been here ever since. But lived in the West Ashley area and the Somerville area for about 10 years.
Oh, good, good. Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, I've been here in Myrtle for, see, since 2000. So what is that? That's 24 years. Yeah, so I've been here about 24 years. So.
Where are you from? I don't even know where you're from, Chris.
Well, originally I am from Illinois, central Illinois, corn country. I mean, surrounded by corn and bean fields. You talk about flat land. From my back porch, I could see the next town over that was 14 miles away. It's that flat. So, yeah, man. So, did a lot of pond fishing, river fishing, bass, catfish, a ton of brim. We would gig frogs. I mean, growing up on the weekends, my buddies and I, we would camp out and gig frogs and fish and fry them up over the fire, and then go raid all the neighbors' gardens for apples and tomatoes and stuff like that. I mean, we'd eat like kings when we would, you know,
Live right there, my man.
yeah. So, and then when I graduated college, I moved out to my wife and I. We moved out to Colorado Springs, and so I was out there for 5 years. I helped build a golf course. I was in golf for a long time, and right at the base of Pikes Peak. So got into fly fishing out there and got to fly fish some gold medal trout streams, and started tying flies, and so just went from the pond fishing to fly fishing. And then after that 5 years, we kind of looked at each other. It's like, hey, why don't we go do the East Coast? And so we moved to Myrtle, and
Awesome.
yeah, so that's kind of the whole roundabout little trip. So
Now you're just the expert saltwater fisher.
no, no, no. I wish I was, man. I tell you, it's when I first got here, it was a struggle to get help. I would ask guys, questions about, tides and stuff like that, kind of the normal stuff. But, I would never ask spots because I don't, you don't ask for spots and stuff like that. But guys are very hesitant to help, you know.
Which is odd. And that's why I wanted to start YouTube so bad, because I just wanted to help people, because I had pretty good mentors. But like I said, in the beginning, it was figure it out, or, look for this. But, and then like just nothing really made sense to me, and like redfish kind of felt like this mysterious creature that I was chasing and I was wanting to catch, but, just didn't know how. And nobody would really give me like any great information.
Right. Yeah.
Which is,
yeah.
it's just crazy how, especially, around Charleston, a lot of these people around here, they're very secretive, very, very, closed lips about, their fishing spots and everything. And I mean, that's fine, it doesn't matter. Like I say in my YouTube videos, like, fish my spots. Like, I'm just going to go somewhere else and catch some more fish, like I try, in my videos, I try not to fish all the same spots all the time. I try to like do different things. Sometimes that backfires, and, trying a new spot and you just not catch anything.
Right. Right. Yeah. One of the guess good and bad things about Merle's Inlet, and since it's right here in my backyard, is Merle's is such a small fishery. It's only 5 miles long and about a mile wide. Well, even with a kayak, that small fishery just becomes even smaller because, I can't pedal, 4.5 miles one way and come back. So now that fishery is even smaller and smaller. So, but, I go to Pawleys, I go up to Cherry Grove. I come down to Charleston quite a bit. I love the Wando River. And this weekend I'm going to be,
Excellent fishing.
yeah, I love the Wando. And Saturday I'm going to be going to Sullivan's Island right there. So we actually have a redfish tournament. So
Nice.
yeah. So we'll be hitting that. So I love Charleston fishing.
Yeah, Charleston fishing's great. We have, three main creek systems that feed into our harbor, and we have a really deep harbor. So we get a lot of the big bull redfish, especially in the October time, in the fall time. Weather starts changing, big bull reds come in, you'll see like a lot of tarpon. But, we have the Wando, the Cooper, and the Ashley River, and they all feed straight into the harbor. Then obviously the harbor feeds into the open ocean. And that makes for a lot of fishing because there's a lot of different things you can do in Charleston. There's a ton of flats fishing, a ton of just, creeks, small creeks, feeder creeks everywhere.
Yeah.
And you got three different creeks, the four really, but like a lot of people just don't count it for whatever reason. But you got all these creeks and all this water and like all these inlets. And it's just a ton of fishing that you can do in Charleston and a ton of different fishing. Like that's why I'm able to have so much different kind of fishing on my YouTube is because it's just Charleston's able to provide that for me.
Yeah.
And it's lots of good fishing off the beaches, offshore, near shore, a lot of good fishing around here.
Yeah, absolutely. So Everett said some people blur out the backgrounds of their photos to hide the locations when posting pics. Yeah, they do. Absolutely. Yeah, people are absolutely, they'll blur them out. They'll turn their back so that, they hide any type of, identifying feature in the landscape, or, hey, there's a house with a pink roof. I know exactly where you're at.
And you'll have those people that will try to, mark your location. We'll try to like pinpoint things in your picture. And there are people out there that will show up at your spot. I've honestly been to a lot of places that I fish off land and there's somebody standing there or, a couple guys standing there fishing, and they recognize me. And they're just like, oh, what's up, man? I was like, no, dude, you guys are good. Like, fish.
Yeah.
That's why I did this. I want to show you guys how to catch fish and come catch them, because that I get a lot of joy out of that. And so my YouTube is just to teach and want people to learn to catch fish. But you do have those people who will just completely like black out a whole background behind them or squat down in the grass or, do everything to try to get a picture to show people, but not show people where they're fishing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if guys can figure out where I'm at, whatever. These guys who, it's not just YouTubers, but I remember, several years ago there were saltwater fishing shows on. Guys down in Charleston, and they'd be out, Folly or whatever, Bulls Bay, and it'd be like, oh yeah, I know where they're at. I recognize it's whatever you're gonna put out, you're gonna recognize where guys are at. It's just,
Yeah. And again, which is totally, like I want people to catch fish. That's the reason people want to go fishing. That's the reason people love fishing is because they're catching fish. People don't love to fish when they don't catch nothing.
Right.
You can just go ahead.
Steve just said, "Yeah, fish are everywhere." It's like, yeah, man, you're exactly right.
Fish are everywhere. Fish are everywhere. Not that don't mean they'll always bite, but you can be fishing an area that's got some nice fish. They're just not going to bite.
Yeah. I've said multiple times that, hey, listen, don't go back to the same spots. Fish have tails; they're going to move. Doesn't mean they're going to be there. But if you understand the trends, presentations, what to look for, just like Steve was saying, fish are everywhere. You can pick up where they're at and where they're moving and catch fish. It's not a spot. It's figuring out the trends and how they move around.
And that's exactly. And I'm glad you said the word trends because that is it. It's how you know, what are the trends? And that's where, again, I go to just think like a fish, and whether it be an incoming tide, an outgoing tide, you're fishing a grass flat or you're fishing the backwater, you know, a lot. I honestly forgot where I was going with that, but
Hey, yeah, it must be rubbing off, man. My mind is it's starting to. Hey, guys, we've been at it about 40 minutes. I'm going to give you another couple of minutes if you guys have another question you want to pop in real quick. But guys, go check out John's channel, Fishful Thinking. Like I said, this is the reason why I got him on here. He is knowledgeable. He's about teaching people. Go check him out, follow him. He's a fantastic guy. So, John, I'll give you the last couple of minutes. So, floor is yours.
all right. Well, guys, if you want to go subscribe to my YouTube channel, it is Fishful Thinking Fishing. And I would appreciate, and I love every subscriber that I get. I really do appreciate. I don't have, just this huge channel. I'm a little over 1,700 subscribers right now, but working our way up, it's fun. I really enjoy teaching. I really enjoy just, wanting people to catch fish and wanting people to go out, rather than sit home and play video games. Let's get outdoors. And so if I can just, and I like to, make sure the kids are, watching too, because I have a lot of kids that'll come up to me. It's like, hey, man, you're so and so, and and I know a lot of kids watch YouTube, and so learn to fish, and you can start them at a young age. I feel like that's the thing. But I'm also on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. If any of you guys out there have Instagram, Facebook, Fishful Thinking Fishing on there, contact me, message me, ask me questions. I'm an open book. I want to help you guys, so feel free to reach out, subscribe, and all that fun stuff. And we'll see you guys in the future.
Awesome. Awesome. John, I really appreciate it. Guys, I'm going to sign off. So I really appreciate you guys jumping on here and all the questions. I am going to go ahead and have another live chat again next week. We'll probably do this weekly for probably to the end of the year. Because this is when the fishing is going to start getting really good. Fall time is just, man, it just flips a switch and it is just on.
Can't
So,
make it bad.
yeah, exactly. So, John, if you'll hang on, don't hang up, and we'll chat after we kind of sign off here. Sorry, I'm doing about 3 things at one time here. That's a whole walking and chewing gum thing. So, guys, I appreciate you, and we will see you next Thursday at 8 o'clock. Y'all have a great night.
See you, DCO Nation.